morning. Can everybody hear me? All right, great. Welcome to Shambhala. Is anybody here for the first time? Special welcome. Our Sunday mornings are a very special time of community and practice, and we always give meditation instruction at this time, so I will be doing that. But first, I'd like to engage in a little bit of reflection on why meditation could be important for us. And judging from the number of people in the room, I think that we all sense a need for this type of activity of stopping. And why do we stop? I have some thoughts, but I'm kind of curious what you think. Why are you taking this time in your day and week to sit down and stop your other activities? We'll just take any answers that you have. Yes?
My mind is racing nonstop. I need a little decompression.
Okay. Anybody else can relate to a mind that's racing nonstop? Okay. Any other reasons why you're here?
Just internally, that little voice saying that it's needed.
Some wisdom, the voice that says this is needed. Great, that's there too. Yeah.
It gives me a different perspective. Working, all week and personal activities after work during the week, I feel overwhelmed, like I can't do them all, and just purposely relaxing and not doing anything gives you a perspective, me a different perspective that it is doable.
Yeah.
If I just maybe stop instead of the faster you go, the less you get done.
Yeah. So a perspective and an antidote for overwhelm. Again, anybody relate to that? Okay. So that's good, because that's what I wanted to talk about. I was thinking that why I sit, and have been for decades, and why it's so important is that there is a natural sense of connecting with space internally that's very similar to the experience of looking up at the sky and having a sense of vastness and possibility that comes from sort of lifting your gaze from all the racing mind and things that you're doing. And if you go out in nature and you just look at the sky, you kind of naturally go, this is bigger than my little concerns. But we have that same possibility of experiencing space by going within. And that's because underneath our racing thoughts and underneath all the things we do and process constantly that overwhelm us is who we really are, which is this sense of space and wisdom, a voice that tells you, I'm here, please sit down and come back to me, right? Please remember me. It's what brings us to a church. It's what brings us to writing. It's what brings us to sitting. It's what brings us to any kind of contemplative activity, is a wisdom, a voice within ourselves that says, I'm here, don't forget me. And in Shambhala, we say that that space is basically good. That the basis of who you are is this basic goodness. It's interesting because when Chogyam Trungpa, the founder of Shambhala, the gentleman on the left, first used the words basic goodness, which was actually, I think, a translation for Domine Zanpo. I might be saying that wrong, but that's the Tibetan. It's translated as basic goodness. Every one of his students had a problem. Like, well, does that mean there's basic badness? Are we saying this is good versus bad? Because the word good has in it sort of implicitly this contrast to bad. But it's not saying that. It's saying basic space, basic purity, basic aliveness. Basically, the way you are is basically good. It's inherently not problematic. It's what it is to be human, to be alive in this most amazing of situations where you're born and then you have awareness that you're going to die. And in between, it's basically good. And even the death is basically good because it was part of the whole thing. That's the bigger perspective of what it is to be human. And that's when you can take a breath about all these things that are racing through our minds and that we're overwhelmed with. They're real in their own way, but they're just happening up here. And they are going to change and they are going to pass. And you know that from experience. The things you worried about a year ago aren't even the problems you're worrying about now, most likely. And somehow they did resolve themselves in one way or another. But we just want to keep chewing on that kind of stuff because this good news basic space is also overwhelming, just like the sky is big and vast and overwhelming, right? So a part of us may be a little bit afraid to move from chewing on the racing thoughts and being overwhelmed with stuff down into this vast open space of anything is possible. And yet, if you have the courage to do that, and that's why in Shambhala what we do is called the path of the warrior, you are rewarded with a sense of groundedness and peace and confidence that does not come from external situations. And so you can face the multitude of things that we have to face in our lives in a different way. So let me stop there for a minute. Does this resonate with you? Is there anything confusing or questions about that so far? So it's really important, actually, that we listen to the voice that brought us into the room today and that brings us to our cushion every day. Because it's not just the sitting in this room or the sitting on your cushion that's important. It's this connection to your basic sanity that's what we're doing. So we can get a little bit insane with the pace of life and with the news and with the issues that come up for family and friends and in our own lives. They're constantly have the potential to throw us off. But if our center is within this knowledge of who we really are, we can live our everyday life in a way that's an example for others who are more confused than we are. And we can be like a beacon of sanity and awareness and joy for the rest of the world, which is really the ground of what we call creating enlightened society, which again is what Shambhala is about. And those words sound pretty grand, but if you really think about it just as each of us being grounded in our own space and sanity and joy and light, then it's really a matter of recognizing that in ourselves and then seeing that in others. And when we recognize it in ourselves and see that in others, it creates a field of kindness. It's basic kindness instead of judgment. There's a lot of judgment going around. So all of these are very practical reasons for practicing meditation. They're very, very practical, and they're needed more now than ever. Now, this is obviously a thousands of year old practice, and you've come into a center where the tradition has come through Buddhism. But you could have, if there were a center around here, gone someplace where the tradition came through Native Americans, or if you were in Australia or New Zealand, where it came through their indigenous peoples. This sitting down on the earth and connecting with one's heart and being, and connecting with the earth and with the environment, is what we're supposed to do as human beings. It's part of how we become fully human, is being connected to this bigger space, which is not just out there, it's also in here. So that's what we're doing together here. All right? Very, very practical, important, and personal journey.